MCU is getting very stale and I'm getting very bored of it. I was very surprised that Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings was fantastic. It was one of the best MCU films. Full stop. Shang-Chi, the master of weaponry-based kung fu, is forced to confront his past after being drawn into the Ten Rings organization. Now, I've said here for a while on Karl's movie film show, Karl by the way, MCU is getting very stale and I'm getting very bored of it. And that's why I didn't go to see this movie in the cinema. I had the option, cinema's right down the road for me, didn't go see it. Because I'm bored of MCU. It was nothing to do personally with Shang-Chi or any of the people involved in it. It just, MCU is getting very stale. Black Widow was fine, but it was very by the book. I'm waiting for something unique, something interesting, something different from MCU. And I was surprised when I watched Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings on Disney Plus Day, where Shang-Chi and Legend of Ten Rings is now on Disney Plus to watch. It's not under premium access or anything like that. You can just watch it on Disney Plus now. I was very surprised that Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings was fantastic. It was one of the best MCU films. Full stop. Now that's a big claim because there's a lot of movies in the MCU and they've had some fantastic ones. Infinity War was sensational. Some of the other ones were brilliant. Thor Ragnarok, fantastic. Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings, I was amazed by how much I liked it because I was going into it with low expectations, I'm not going to lie. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it more than I expected to. I expected another generic MCU movie, with a little twist on it. They brought in a hero we haven't had in the mainstream MCU films before. But even with the trailers building up to the movie, I did a trailer reaction to 4 of the mini trailers they released before the movie, and a lot of them focused on a scene on a bus, which is actually at the start of the movie. I wasn't too hyped for the movie even from the trailers. I don't think they did a very good job of building this movie up, as well as they did with other MCU movies. But this movie deserves a lot of praise because it's different, it's unique, it's got its own, what would you say, je ne sais quoi type of thing. Breaking out the French, that's about all my French. It's just got its own feeling to it. It's its own entity within the MCU. It's completely separate from everything else we've seen. And it's damn awesome. I found myself locked in and really engaged and really enjoying the movie. And if it wasn't for a couple of tie-ins, like certain characters popping up that we've seen in the MCU, side characters for the most part, if it wasn't for those elements popping in, you could be forgiven for not realizing this was an MCU movie. Apart from little tie-ins and the post-credits scene, this could be just a standalone, really cool action movie. It's exactly what I want from Marvel, is different, just something completely different from the MCU. And now, sure, you've still got a superhero, you've still got his origin story, you've still got good guys versus bad guys, and you're going to get that with every superhero movie. But this one just had a little bit more to it, even to the point where one character gets his soul sucked out by a soul-sucking demon, I guess. And it was really vicious for an MCU movie. They definitely, in my opinion, need to go darker with the MCU. They need to just jazz it up a little bit. They need to do something a little bit different. I'm hoping when I watch Eternals, it's going to be something like that, although I've heard bad things. Well, I won't judge till I actually watch that. But I personally was blown away by how much I enjoyed Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings. Then you throw in the post-credit sequence, and spoiler alert here, if you haven't seen the post-credit sequence, go watch it, come back here, and then we'll talk about it, but, give you your little warning there. So the post-credit sequence, and you've got Mark Ruffalo, Brie Larson pop up, and Hulk and Captain Marvel, and the guy who helps out Doctor Strange, they're all looking at the rings and the projector thing and saying, what are these things? They're not vibranium. We've not any metal we've ever seen. Where have they come from? Hinting that we're at the beginning of something completely new in the MCU. And hopefully, I'm holding out hope now that Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings is the beginning of something very good for the MCU, because it badly, badly needs a shake-up. But overall, with the movie, the pacing was fantastic throughout. The story was really good, some really good ups and downs, especially with the bad guys. I've given a spoiler alert, so I think I can mention this part. With the dad, you don't know at times if he's the good guy or he's the bad guy, and I think they do a really good job there. He goes, chases down his son and his daughter, and he seems like the bad guy. But then when he's talking to them at the dinner table and he's like, just seeming like a man who wants to get his wife back, he seems like a good guy. But then again, it flips around, he's a bad guy, and then at the end, he's a good guy. And they do a good job of keeping you guessing of, is he really evil, or is he just, misled? And again, probably another spoiler, there's like 3 spoilers in one video. Ben Kingsley is phenomenal in this movie, he's hilarious all the way through.
Planet of the Apes. I was sitting in the cinema next to my mum, watching mastery unfold before my very eyes. After the film, I asked her, how did they get those monkeys to do those things? And she patted me on the head and she said, it's not real, pet. It's just acting. That's when I knew. If they can teach those monkeys to act that brilliantly, just imagine what I could bring to the world.
The one like possible negative you could point at is that there's a brother and sister who are clearly as powerful as each other, but the sister is very much made the sidekick, the side character. They're both as powerful as each other, as well trained. Arguably the sister's better because she beat Shang-Chi in a fight at the beginning of the movie, but she's kind of pushed aside and they just keep focusing on Shang-Chi, even though his sister is like right there. But that's the only minor complaint I can come up with for the movie because, you know, I do like to complain about movies. You might have noticed on the channel before, there's loads of videos where I do just complain about movies. Basically the whole premise of the channel, which of course if you want to subscribe to, if you haven't already, that'd be greatly appreciated. But now we come down to a rating for Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings. And the only reason I'm not giving it above an 8.5 out of 10 is because I weight these movies against movies I watched recently. And recently I watched Dune, one of those, and I gave that an 8.5 out of 10. So anything that gets above an 8.5 out of 10 at the moment is going to have to be super sensational. And I don't think Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings was that good, but it was damn good. And I've said before on the channel many times now, to get an 8 or above on the channel out of 10, you're going to have to be a spectacular, fantastic movie. And Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is a fantastic movie. So therefore, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings gets an 8 out of 10, and I'd highly recommend checking it out on Disney+. But this is where I throw it over to you guys because I want to know your opinions on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Have you seen it? If you haven't seen it, is it because you don't like MCU anymore? And if that's the case, I'd highly recommend checking it out. But definitely tell me your opinions in the comment section below on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And I guess with all that being said and done, thank you so much for watching.